my day off on Friday, a day off from chopping and things, obviously I didn't sit around for too long because I'm not very good at sitting around unless I've absolutely got to. So I got on with a few jobs out in the garden. I tidied up the nasturtium plants which were here, filling the whole of that space. I'm halfway across the path. They've gone into the compost bin. And I did a bit of weeding in between the leeks so that they're a bit clearer. They're not completely clear, but they're not so bad. And I lifted the last of the beetroot from this bed, which we're having for supper tonight, so obviously won't count in my harvest tally. And I also cleared the nasturtiums from this area here, and I think we'll have plenty next year because there's an awful lot of nasturtium seeds in the path, on the bed, and I really don't mind where they grow. I really like nasturtiums. They're great for the caterpillars, and it saves caterpillars from eating my food, and because they're very much attracted to them, and they're very cheerful plants. Well, today's harvest was very easy. Just this one very rather lovely squash, the easiest harvesting I've done for a while, and there are several more growing on further down the vine. Look at these, don't they look great? They're still quite small, but there's plenty of time now for them to get larger and become mature. A couple of days ago the government sent out an advisory notice, if that's the right phrasing for it, to tell poultry keepers to continue to be aware of the biosecurity measures that are needed to help prevent avian flu, and also just giving us a heads up basically that lockdown will be coming again. And well, they haven't actually said that, but reading between the lines, they have put out a statement saying that last year the birds needed to be under cover. Avian flu hasn't gone away, so from that I think we can deduce that the lockdown will happen again. And I know I keep banging on about it, but it's a pain in the proverbial. Anyway, here in Big White's field, this is let you get your bearings. That's where you usually see him, in the field over there, but he can come through to this section here, where the squabbling chickens are, and it goes round through a walkway into the palace. So this area here I'd like to cover with netting that is wild bird poop proof. That's really hard to say. So what I've been doing is, bit by bit, I've been adding the top rail that goes along here. And so what I've done this morning is put in that rail, and then a cross piece there as a bracing piece. And the next thing I need is for Mr. J to put a new post, a vertical post, in sort of about here, coming up, which means I can then put some cross pieces in to start forming a frame for the netting to go over. Now luckily the netting that goes over the top of these pens is really lightweight, so we don't need anything really structural there, and in some ways something that can bend a little with the wind is an advantage, just because it's a pretty windy site, as you know, and that's fairly open and exposed. So as long as we can get the netting over and secure it really well, that would be brilliant, and it means the birds can have some outside space for the 3, 4 or 5 months of the winter where the birds have to be kept under cover. And I've also been around almost the whole of the small holding looking for those horrible spiky pernicious thistles, and with the hoe just chopping the tops off the very young ones in my attempt to here comes the sun in my attempt to prevent them from growing into huge great monsters next year. But it's also meant that I've been looking really carefully at the garden. So for example, here, right on the edge of the food forest, I've found, well, is this a plum? Is it a cherry? Is it just a weed? I don't know. And I'm probably unwisely, I'm going to let it grow on a little bit until I can work out what sort of leaf that is. But it definitely looks like a little tree of some sort to me. I've let this plant grow, and it's now grown to about 7 feet high, and I may regret letting it grow. It's not necessarily in the best place, but you know, there's something about allowing plants to grow and to have a proper chance for you to be able to see what they are. Now, weeds I'm fairly good at recognising, and I'm not terribly good at pulling them up, but I do recognise them as weeds. Trees, I'm pretty good at identifying some trees, but not necessarily all of them, and not necessarily plum trees. Well, I've really enjoyed my day off, from chopping apples and beans, and I feel refreshed, and I feel, you know, sometimes they say a change is as good as a rest. Well, actually, do you know what? A rest is as good as a rest too. And I'll be back at the chopping and preparing and harvesting and storing tomorrow, and with renewed vigour, I hope. And it's time for me to go in and feed these birds and get some supper. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've been doing today, I hope it's been a restful one, and I hope it's been a good one. And I also hope you can join me again tomorrow.